Is what we do, man.
Welcome back to another episode on Oak and Rock Fatherhood. As always, I'm your host, Zachary Small, joined by the one and only Anthony Migliorino. Anthony, what's up, brother?
Hey, what's going on, Zach? How we doing tonight?
I'm busy, dude. I'm busy. We've been doing a lot. We've been having Twitter spaces. We've been having FOE spaces. We now have a dad's day space. We have Oak and Rock Fatherhood live streams. There's a lot of fatherhood and family content being shared. And you know what? I don't get tired of talking about this. And we were talking just before we went live. I was like, "You ready?" Dude, we're always ready. This is a conversation that needs to be had, and we can have content daily. Every single day we're talking about this. Every single day we're working towards improving what it is that families are going through. And today is no different. Fortunately, today is a live session, so we get interactions with others. But before we dive into the topic, which is why are kids so fucked up these days, we are going to talk about how you are doing since the last episode. So what's new, man?
I'm good, brother. We're just trying to be consistent, man. Consistent in the gym, consistent in life. Just doing the next right thing. That's the motto. And you know, there's a lot of things going on. A lot of big improvements to the life happening. So we'll share that next live stream.
Yeah,
We got
buddy.
some things in the works, but no, overall, man, things are good. Nothing is gonna stop me physically or mentally from spreading this message.
I believe it. I saw you podcasting the day after you had surgery, man. Like there is nothing that stops you, and I love it. You know, one of the things I'm realizing is my kids. They started summer break, and so summer break is full effect here, and they're hanging out and having a good time. And today, I was like, guys, I'm going to be working, just hang out. Dude, my kids are pretty chill. They're just wandering around, doing their thing, hanging out outside, reading books, hanging out inside. The way my office is set up, I've got a chair right here, and I'm sitting there watching them read. It's pretty cool to see it play out to where they're just chilling and they're relaxed in their home. And when we look at topics like we have today, and that's my segue, we look at the topics like today, like why do we look at kids and they're just so jacked up? We see mental health in states being declared as states of emergency for the youth because they're losing their minds. We see stuff all over social media highlighting teenagers doing this, doing that, and the other, making the news because they're 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 either pushing against some crazy narrative or agenda that's being pushed. So kids aren't complying and they're calling their teacher sir or ma'am when they don't want to identify as that. And then we see these other kids who are going and just losing their minds, being brought into these drag shows. There's a lot of things on mainstream media that are involving children, and we're looking to the kids as if they have a problem. And so that's where the question came from.
Yeah,
Is it
man.
the kids? Is it the kids these days? Are the kids these days that fucked up? If they are, why? So let's dive into that. Before we do, if you enjoy what it is we're putting out there, make sure you like and subscribe. We are going to be talking about fatherhood. We're going to be talking about family for years to come. So just jump on it, catch up. We've got a big catalog. Tonight, we're talking about children, why they're so fucked up, if they are. Anthony, what are your thoughts on that? The current state of children.
Current state, when so I would say, the biggest thing we need to look at first and foremost is what what all human beings need. And I think that is connection and love. And children are no different. So I think if we operated from that stance, we would see a completely different world. Right. If you're not giving your kid love, and not what you think love is, but if a child feels loved, right? There's a big difference. Talk to a lot of dads who say, I hit my kid out of love. I spanked them. Well, that's not love, right? That's abuse. So we need to be clear on what it is we're doing with our kids when we're parenting them in the home, right? We have to make sure that our kids feel like they're being loved. And this is how they're able to grow up and they can love other people, right? It's as simple as that. So a child who's raised in a house of violence, they'll grow up either to be violent or to allow violence against them. So I think, and violence is just one thing, right? And we talk about that a lot. I know we're big. Well, I'm a big advocate against corporal punishment, spanking. I know you are too, Zach. But there's also other types of abuse, right? There's emotional, psychological. There's different things we're doing to kids because as parents, we are not dialed in, right? We don't have our shit together. So unfortunately, it's going to affect how the child develops. And it's going to affect them in a negative way. And this is nothing new, right? The kids these days, we hear that phrase all the time. I've heard it growing up, right? Pete, they used to say it about me when I was growing up, me and all my friends. So I think what we're seeing is you have a cause and an effect. You have kids being parented a certain way for generations, and it comes out distorted. And I think each generation, the distortion is a little different from previous, right? I mean, think back through history. You had like the punk rockers, you had the hippies, right? Now you have whatever the hell's going on today. All of it is a reaction to confusion and stress, but it's there because we've lost it as a parenting authority, right? As being leaders in the home, it was lost there, and that's why the kids suffer.
Can you imagine a state when you were growing up where your dad told you that you weren't allowed to call a man a man? Like, did you ever have that discussion coming up? You know, and I get it. You know, I'm going after some low hanging fruit here, but I'm just highlighting a point. We're pointing at these kids and saying the kids are so fucked up these days, and yet these kids, a basic tenet of my childhood was kindergarten cops. Boys have a penis, girls have a vagina, and our kids can't say that. Our kids, I mean, they can. My kids do, but there are many who are living in some areas where they've gone all in on the woke agenda and the woke. You know, let's make sure we don't hurt any feelings. We're inclusive to everyone, and it's come at the cost of children having any connection with anybody because nothing's real. There's nothing real anymore. The money that our government prints, that's fake money. You know, the movement we have when it comes to crypto, when it comes to some things getting off of the grid, that is now viewed as a negative. Like, you're not supposed to get on these things that pull you away from it. You're supposed to lean more onto what has been called woke culture. You know, you need to lean more on more PC, more inclusive, more, you know, doubling down on making sure that you don't offend anyone. And it's come at the cost of understanding how to interact with anyone. And kids these days have a hard time connecting because they're operating in a lot of homes where connection isn't made a priority. And so when we look at it, the kids are fucked up because they're raised by parents who aren't raising kids properly. Jacked up kids are product of jacked up parenting. The kid isn't born bad. The kid's not born with sin. The kid's not born confused. The kid's not born with all these mental health issues. The kid's not born with depression. The kid is born. And what happens from there is parenting. And poor parenting results in a poor child. Well, not a poor child. In the development, the poor development of certain areas of what a child is. And so the kids that are stressed out and not being able to figure things out, they have nowhere to go to get reprieve from this. Think about how many homes have Fox News running 24/7. Think about how many homes the parents are keeping up with the next trend. And they're like, hey, kid, we got to go to this drag show. I don't know what's going to be next, but they're like, hey, kid, we got to go to this anti-Trump thing, even though he's been out of office for like 2 fucking years. Hey, kid, we got to go to this thing here. And these parents are making these children a part of the parents' decision to try to keep up with a toxic cycle. They're playing a game that's not good for the adult, and they're pulling the kid with them. And so the kids are losing their minds. They're being raised by fucked up adults, if we have to really boil this down. It's the parents that are fucked up. But nobody wants to address that because it's hard to take responsibility for this. And when I say my kids don't do this, dude, it's because I don't play any of the fucking reindeer games. We don't do any of the shit that you see. And my kids they have normal growing pains. They don't have the fucked up shit that's going on with a lot of these children who are just lost.
Yeah, man, that's a great point, man. Right? That, you know, we say that kids have it easier these days, and to what you just said, right? They don't. There's so much confusion about identity, about government, about policies, even about what a family is. Right? There's all this confusion, all this turmoil about what a child should be doing, how they should be doing it, instead of just focusing, I guess, more on the parent. And I really believe that if we could build that foundation, like I said before, with love and connection, I think that's the key that's missing. Because the parents you're describing, they were raised a certain way. And mostly that was with physical punishment, corporal punishment. It was with a lot of manipulation, a lot of emotional abuse. Kids have not, there hasn't been a point in time in history where kids have not experienced that. I mean, I speak to a panel of men, and I can guarantee you, anytime I ask a question, who has not been spanked here? Nobody raises their hand. That's how uncommon it is. We've all come from homes where we've been usually abused physically or emotionally. It's the norm, right? These kids, we were kids once. We were raised a certain way that affected how we act and how we behave. And now we're raising kids that way. But I truly believe that if, again, we get back to that foundation, right, there would be no confusion about what masculinity is. We wouldn't be hearing phrases like toxic masculinity. There would be natural instincts that our young boys would grasp, they would understand, right? It's because we have the opposite, because they've grown up and they've learned not to trust the one man in their life that they should, and that's their father. If we can bring trust back, you would see those conversations go away. Young boys wouldn't grow up and be like, oh, should I be a dad? Am I a father? We wouldn't have those conversations. Same thing with young girls. right? If they were to see their father with stability and safety and some structure in the home, a man who is living his life with purpose and meaning, there would be less confusion amongst the children. We wouldn't see the psychoness, the craziness, the distortion, like you said, of reality, right? It would be real clear what we needed to do to build healthy families. And I think that's the key, right? We were speaking about mental health issues. We know what healthy looks like, right? We know what physical health looks like. We know what mental health looks like. We don't give it to our kids. We don't offer them the same insight, the same guidance that we do other adults. If we did that, the world would completely change. You're muted.
I'm new. Why do you think we're devolving the way we are? Like, why do you think it is the way it is? Because there was a time, I'm looking to my grandfather. My grandfather was raised during the Great Depression. I don't even know if he knew his parents. It was a hard life. He was a pilot in World War II. Bad dude. He did some cool things, raised a huge family, whatever. Corporal punishment was definitely a thing on my father. In my grandfather's time frame, corporal punishment existed, but I guess that's the way it was. You know, they just operated like that. And they came through, you had your job, you worked there for 20 years, you retired, you enjoyed your pension, and then you died. Cool. Next generation. My dad, when he was coming up, he joined the military, but there was still this understanding that, hey, if you are good, the government will take care of you. People will take care of you. Men are men, women are women. You know, it's the 80s. They got the mustache, Top Gun, like all this cool shit's happening. Terminator, Rocky, like real man shit. You knew what a man was. Like you knew, like all the superhero action movies, those were the 80s and 90s, man. And so that my dad's growing up in there, and corporal punishment was the thing when I was coming up. So go to the next level. I went with no corporal punishment, but the way I came up, I knew what a man was. In school, I knew what a girl was. It was normal. You know, kids you'd smoke pot, you would drink booze, you would sneak around, you'd have your parties, you would go do your thing, you start your career, and then you go forward. And it's been roughly in my adult time frame that loss of loyalty to a business occurred. It was highlighted somewhere, I would say in the 2010 and beyond, that companies are just moving on. Maybe it was tech. It kind of balanced the playing field, but somewhere in there, and I want to say social media, but I want to hear your input. Somewhere in there, something changed. And to where all of a sudden, you know, things weren't what they used to just be accepted. You just accepted, yeah. You know, you worked at a job, you could retire. Well, nowadays, no. They're going to can you can them. There's telework. There's all sorts of things. People are hopping jobs to get who will pay them the most. They're no longer accepting what a job will give them. They're going out and they're getting what they want. And in their families, parenting is less direct communication and interaction with the kids. And it's more, oh, just go watch this thing. You know, go over here and enjoy this distraction. I really didn't have that. I was kicked outside. And so it seems as though now our kids are growing up in a world where you don't know what feminine is. Girls aren't told like, hey, learn these sewing skills, these cooking skills to go take care of your family. Like that's not a thing. Boys aren't told, be like Rocky, be like Rambo, like go out, be tough, be strong, shoot guns, rah. You know, we don't even have any semblance of that really. We have Twilight. Like we have this whole the new male that was coming out where guys are acting more feminine. Their facial features, they're trying to be more feminine with the photos they take. You see this with a lot of young men, and it's like, well, where are the meatheads? Where are all the dudes that I grew up around? There were nerds, there were jocks, there were goths, but I'm saying like the boys were boys. It was very clear, and they're like being gay, not being gay. It wasn't really a thing. Like there was very few that you knew, and it just wasn't spoken about. It was almost like don't ask, don't tell, you know. And then now it's just hyper amplified everywhere, and there's transgender everywhere. And so to me, it's like we have been devolving since the 70s and 80s onto what a man is and what a woman is, what a family is, to where now we have what was that Australian politician saying parents shouldn't be involved in the raising of children. We have teachers nowadays saying you don't decide what I teach your kid, and you don't have any input on what I teach your kid. And so how did we get to this? Where do you see this beginning, and where do you see it ending?
Oh man, I don't know. I don't know if you're gonna enjoy my answer. So, and I agree with you. Right before we start fighting.
All right, I got the gloves on.
I would say what you said was relevant, right? And going back to the premise, right? I think when you said devolving, was that the word you used?
Yeah.
So I think it's always been there. It shows up differently every generation. And what we're seeing now is kind of like the tipping point. So if we can go back right to the strong men of prior generations, there was deception in what their strength was. And I'm going to say this just based on statistics, right? You have 22 veterans who commit suicide a day. You have high suicide rates among young males, the highest by far of any other category demographic. There is something lacking within the community of men, right? Whether no matter how far back you go, right? There's always been something missing. There's being something suppressed. And I think what we take away is, we talk about how important fathers are. They absolutely are the pinnacle, right, of the family. But more importantly, most young boys are raised by mothers, and they've been raised by mothers throughout history. A lot of the mothers are abusive. They're manipulating their boys. They're raising weak sons, ultimately, right? Through physical violence, through emotional abuse. Now, when, we talk about allowing kids to be free and be who they are, that is not happening anywhere, right? And even now, as we talk about peaceful parenting, everybody's like, oh, if you're a peaceful parent, your kids are going to grow up, they're going to be weak, they're going to be outraged. And that's not what this is about. This is about creating an environment where your child can flourish, where they can be stable, they can be safe, they can be secure, they have mental fortitude. We're working on creating physical health, whether that's a physical body, nutrition. Like, these are things you have to do as a parent actively. When that's missing, and when kids can't be who they are, to get to the point, I don't want to get too sidetracked, but you get suppression, and it happens generation and generation, and it builds up and it's building. Now we have it, the top blows off, and we have nobody understands reality. No, and it's from mental health issues. It's from kids being suppressed. It's from, and I'm going to go to young boys especially, because again, the father, the head of the household, the patriarch. If that young boy is not being raised to understand what it is to be a masculine, good man, you're gonna have a breakdown. And let's not lie, man. I know a lot of dudes who, they talk about being tough, they talk about being the leader, they hit their kids, they fucking talk shit about their wife, they cheat on their wives, they do things that are not reflective of what a good man should be. They manipulate their kids, they steal. And you're gonna love this one. This will put you over the top. They litter, right? They throw fucking garbage.
You had me. I was willing to overlook everything. I can't do that, man. I cannot.
No, but it's true, man. So again, we can blame the kids, right? We can say, oh, these kids are so lost. They don't know between men and women. We have a whole society that's predicated upon that. We have a whole medical system that's giving surgeries to kids and saying that it's okay to chop off breasts if a young girl wants to transition to a boy. We have all these weird things showing up, and nobody's questioning if we're protecting the kids. All these dads who are saying, oh, this has to stop, this is nonsense. It stops in your home. You break the cycle in your home. You stop hitting your kids. You stop physically abusing them. You teach them that their body is theirs. And if it's the teacher, the guidance counselor, the therapist, nobody is going to have influence over them, what they do to their body. That child was created. That confusion was created, and it happened for generations.
It's an excellent, not only an excellent answer, but also sets up a great segue. And not to pass the buck back to you, but when the fuck did men stop being men? When did that stop? I'm just like peeling the layer back, so I agree with everything you just said. And I have and will continue to say no when they start doing some weird shit and trying to bring that shit into my life. I'm not saying to my kids, I'm not saying to my wife, I'm saying to society, to other grown men, to whoever the fuck is trying to tell me what to do. No, we're not playing in your games. And I can't stress that enough. I do not play those things. We do not. My television in this house has never, not once, had the news on it. I don't care. It does not impact me. It does not concern me. I get my information from men on the ground about things I need to know. I get good intel and I move on and I carry forward. I don't even think about it. I just make the moves, I apply, and then boom, go forward. I don't stress. Why don't we see fathers standing up saying, no, enough? What is it that's keeping them back?
They're wounded, brother. They're carrying wounds for generations, generational trauma. So it's hard to break those chains when you don't get support. So if you're a young boy and you grow up to be a man, most of the most violent crimes that we see are committed by men, right? Probably 98% of them. I'm talking murder, homicide, rape. And there's reasons for that, right? It's not that men are instinctually these evil creatures who are filled with testosterone and aggression, right? Yeah, they're more aggressive than women, absolutely, because they've had to learn how to survive, to fight, to hunt, to kill in order to survive. But it doesn't mean that we always have to depict men as this savage who's going to go out and kill, right? If they're not in touch with the other side, and I'm not going to say the feminine side, but if they were not nurtured by their mother, they're missing out on a fucking lot when they grow up to be a man. They didn't have that connection to a caring and wonderful woman who was going to show them the qualities of the feminine. They miss that. So now they grow up, and if they have not done any work, if they didn't, if there wasn't a point in their life where they said, "Hey, man, my life is fucked up. Things are tough. Things are hard. I don't know what I'm doing," and they never got help, the cycle continues, and now they infect other men. And now you have, not only do you have men not pushing back against this bullshit, but you have men who actually openly promote it, right? And they say, "Oh, the feminists are trying to push us down." And that might be, right? There's a lot of crazy feminists out there who they don't want equality. They just want power of the government. They want the government to give them privilege, right? And say, "Oh, we were oppressed for so many years." But the truth is, again, we go back to reality. What cures all is connection. What cures is love. What cures is stability and safety. And your kids growing up in an environment, if we can raise young boys to be in an environment where they are safe, right? As tough as we want to be, young boys need to be safe. They need to be taught that they're important. We need to cut down on the suicide rates of young boys and young men. It needs to be addressed. We need to raise our young boys where they're not sexual deviants. They're not hiding from the abuse that they withstood in their childhood, and it comes out in these sadistic and fucking kink fetishes, where they're trying to mask all the pain that they go through. And don't even, I'm going to end it on the worst thing is the addiction, the alcoholism, the drug addiction, the porn addiction, the video game addiction. All these things distort the child's mind, and they grab the child's attention because they've missed out on childhood. They missed out on that connection in childhood from the parents. So that's how you fix it.
It's a great answer, and it's so fucking enormous that there's probably 45 podcasts we could do off that. And so I'm going to have to bring it back a little bit to go a little more towards the surface of the water because we're on the deep end. But with that said, I had a great discussion today with Adam Lane Smith for the Family Alpha podcast, and we were talking about exactly what you just said. I was like, dude, like, why are we in the state that we're in? And he's like, do you know why there's an obesity epidemic, an opioid epidemic, an alcoholic epidemic? Everything you just said, porn. He's like, because that's the only shit that's keeping people from killing themselves, because they don't know how to deal with their real fucking life, because they've never fostered a healthy relationship with anybody. From their birth, their parents did not have a healthy relationship, which stunted them from even knowing what that looked like. And so they just fill that void with these distractions or these numbing agents. And dude, they couldn't have aligned very well, because that's twice in one day I've had people bring the same thing up. And so it's real, and people are seeing it. And I look at this and I can't help but wonder, like, why do we have so much faux, outrage and faux anger and faux strength? And I say faux like a faux hawk, it's fake. It's not a real mohawk. It just looks like one. That strength that these men are showing, it's not real. They'll go on Twitter and they'll say, no feminism. They'll say, no, I don't want control. The government can't tell me what to do. And then they'll walk into their house and they'll just dunk on their kids. They'll walk and they'll assert that same authority, that same control, that same privilege, feminism. They're like, oh, because we're women. That's the bottom line. I want this because I'm a woman. And you guys are so mean to me. It's kind of like the reparations. You guys were horrible to black people back then. I want you to fix it now. They go in there and they're like, oh, the world's dunking on me. I'm dunking on you, kid. Well, why do I need to listen to you? I'm the adult. That's the same thing as saying I'm a woman. What does you're the adult mean? That means you're allowed to take the freedom away from the individual living in your home. Is that what that means? And you're willing to go online and say, oh, no, boys shouldn't be competing in girls' sports. You don't see it the other way around, because there's no advantage. A girl going to a boys' sport will get wrecked. A man going to a woman's will dominate. We have, for many different physiological reasons. And these men will go on Twitter and type about this, but they won't go to the competition. They won't go to the coordinator. They won't go to the director of the event. They won't go where the meat meets the meat to have the discussion. they'll go on Twitter behind their anon name and talk shit. And these same men who are these strong, masculine alpha men, check their bios, red pill, rah. They're the same motherfuckers who won't say a word out in public. If they see it happening, they won't speak up. And so when I look at this and all this fakeness, I'm starting to realize that the divide, and again, I'm going back to social media, man. Like the more I've been looking at this, the ability to go on a screen and say whatever you want, it gets rid of that. I did something, I contributed, but you did nothing. You achieved nothing. You wrote on a platform that millions of people are writing on, and your children who are right next to you, where you could go and give them a hug and connect with them and go in the world and protect them. You skip that thinking this is changing the world. And this right now, our discussion, that goes beyond just a random tweet or an anonymous name, but it's what's happening in you and I's home that we're bringing here. It's the home first and then here. With a lot of individuals, it's only online. It's all fucking sizzle. Talk a lot of shit, but you press them and there's no meat. There's no steak in there. And I think that's where, when I'm starting to talk to guys, you don't tell me, show me. Everybody knows that. Don't tell, show. Yeah. The whole fucking world understands that. But when it's going out to protecting your children, when it's going out to actually defending your family, you have to do it. You can't just talk about it. You can't talk your way to being a great father. You can't tweet your way to a connected family. That's not how it works. It's getting down on the trenches. It's getting down and connecting with your children. The problem we see, why are kids so fucked up these days? Because their parents left them out to slaughter. Because the kids were thrown into the world to be eaten by the wolves out there with all these psychopaths who are losing their shit and pushing their deviant and fucking agendas. And then they're just sitting here on their computer happy as can be because they still have their Netflix, they still have a full fridge, and they still have their porn they can turn to when nobody's looking. And so they're taken care of. What do they care about the kids? Figure it out. I did. They're in a whole different fucking world than we were in. An entirely different world. And they're just being told to figure it out. And then they have the audacity to go on and say it's the kids these days. The kids these days have no top cover. They have no shield. They are figuring it the fuck out on their own. And I would say that that's coming across a little bit as fear-mongering, but I've seen it too much. I have seen it like on the grassroots level with these kids. Just talk. I will sit down with my baseball team and just talk to them. And I just see what's going on in their lives. I go to my kids' school events. I see it. I don't say a word, man. I'm just like observing and just kind of just soaking it in. I'm like, holy fuck. There's some really good examples of some great human beings out there. And I have a lot of hope for our youth, but there's also a lot who have just been left alone. And then those kids are just being taken advantage of by everyone. And those kids have no hope. They think that this is how it's supposed to be. This is what normal looks like. And I'm like, man, if you could just come and spend a weekend at my house, it would fuck your whole world up because you would see adults do connect with kids. It can be peaceful. There should not be yelling. You can be happy. You can play and have a good relationship with those that you love.
Yeah. And it could be structured. It could be somewhat safe, right? There's going to be a little chaos. There always is with freedom.
It's the best chaos, though. Like it's supposed to be a little bit out of line. Like color outside the lines is good.
Yeah, no, but to dial it in a little bit. And, you know, obviously we do this. This is what we do. We coach, man. We talk about parenting. We have important conversations. And we never look to tear anybody apart, right? Our mission, our purpose is to help build people back up, to help fathers and parents, right? That we have these discussions all the time. But to one of the questions you asked in there is like, why is this happening, Zach? And I think with the whole social media thing, it's the same reasons we were just describing, right? You have men who are, to a degree, they're sinister, right? They're operating they're operating from a I lost my my word I was going to use, but they're operating from a different component, right? They're being ungenuine, and they're doing it for monetary gain. They've become a salesman almost, and they're pitching these ideas, these things that get them eyes, that get them money, and you can look underneath the curtain, right behind the curtain. It's all bullshit. There's nothing going on outside of what you're seeing on social media. But it is something that they need to feel important. It's something that they're doing to get eyes on them, to be significant in the world. And the tragedy to that is they're missing out on their home, right? They're missing down sitting and having a family dinner with their kids and having a discussion. And not just doing it because we're saying it's the right thing to do. Like, I don't want any man to go and tell his kids, hey, listen, you all have to sit down with dinner with us because Anthony and Zac said so. And this is how we build a strong family. That's not what I want. I want you to see the real value in it. I want you, we we often describe the dinners we have. We did an episode at your house at your dinner table, right? And I ate dinner with your kids. You have had dinner with mine. We want to share those ideas so men can understand exactly what that looks like and how they can go about it, not in a violent way, not in a forceful way, and not in a way where you're trying to manipulate your kids to spend time with you, right? Why are we so afraid as men to say, hey, you know what? It's really important that my kids value the time they spend with me, that they enjoy it, that they get some sort of fun and joy and entertainment out of it. They also get a sense of belonging and connection. Why is that so strange to so many men? And you can answer it, but I'm going to tell you my thought is they've never had that. They don't
That
know.
was my first thought, man. They don't know what that's like.
They don't know what that feels like, man. Think about how fucking empty and shallow that is. So you talk about mental health issues, you talk about mass shooters and violent criminal men filling prisons and all the shit we see in the world. We can fix that as fathers. We can start giving our sons acceptance for who they are. This way, they don't have to go out into the world and ask what gender they are. They don't have to go out into the world and say, what job should they get to be a good citizen? They can start forging their own path and being that independent individual who doesn't give a fuck about what dysfunctional people think. They don't turn on the news and be like, oh my God, look at everything that's going on. They say, wow, man, there's some crazy motherfuckers out there. And if I keep building myself, maybe I can throw a rope to them. Maybe I can help them.
I would go so far as to say that it's not that they don't give a fuck what these crazy motherfuckers think. I would say they don't care what anyone thinks because they're not there to please anybody. They're there to live their life, and it doesn't matter your political ideology, your religion, your age, your gender. It doesn't matter your sexual preference, your skin color. They don't care because they're just there to live their best life. And if you're a good individual who they see value in, then they will bring you into their life. And so this, like that right there, I think is the crux of it. If we could live that way and show our children, we don't need to please anybody. We don't need to pretend that, hey, let's get this perfect photo so I can put that out and say how good of a dad I am. Instead, you can say, hey guys, I love you. Like, this is awesome. Let's have a good time together. Let's go. And then random photos show up. Awesome. Cool. Get those photos. But you don't ever try to put on a show of something that's not real, because you're not trying to impress the Joneses. You're not trying to keep up with anybody. You're just content with who you are. But if you're coming home every day and you're hating your life, you're coming home every day and telling your kids how much you hate your job, you're showing them you do things you don't want to do for people you don't like because that's what you're supposed to do. That's what being an adult is. And the kid's like, oh, okay, that's what I'm supposed to live. And then again, I think I was talking the de-evolution, I agree. I think we're now in a position where it's all just being highlighted, and it was sitting there.
Social media. Yeah.
Well, as we go through it, though, you see it more and more and more. So it's getting worse and worse and worse. And so now it went from the dad hating his job, like the Homer Simpson, the Peter Griffin, like, oh, come home, kick the feet up, drink your beer. That the next de-evolution of that is just you have nothing.
Dad has
like,
boobs.
Yeah, like you have literally, like, are you the dad? Am I allowed to call you dad? If I have two moms? Like, joking aside, there's a lot we could go down that. But you look at it, these kids, they have the most poor example, and it has nothing to do with money. Their parents are poor on the inside. Their parents are poor with love. They're emotionally bankrupt. They have nothing to give their kids because they don't know how to feel themselves. They're just a mom. They're just a dad. They're just a consumer. And all they're doing is going to the next thing to stream and the next thing to binge. And they're never stopping and thinking, I've got children here who are the greatest entertainment in the world. You hang out with the kids, man, they will keep you busy an entire day. And you'll have a great bond and you'll have fun. You'll feel this thing called satisfaction when you lay down in bed. And so a lot of people lay down and they're anxious. They're either anxious about tomorrow or all the things they didn't do today or all the stuff they didn't handle. Dude, when I pass out, I'm like, man, what a day. Like, where do I start with telling you what I did today? Like, awesome. I look at my kids, I talk about the stories that they have. And you're right. We share what we do for people to see our version of what we're saying they could have. Like, my version of sitting down is different than yours. Your marriage is different than mine. Our interactions day to day, they're different, but they're harmonious. They coincide so well together because they're focused on the same foundation of connection, of peace, and of making everyone just the best they could possibly be. Like, that's what the system's designed to do, to make your son the best son, or him to go the best way he wants to go. Your daughters, same thing. My son and daughter, what's their version of what's right? Let me be a part of that journey. It's not stay away from me. I want to sit and watch fucking, I don't even know what people watch these days. Whatever the new fucking thing is, man. And so when you look at it from that angle, the kids these days, when we're like, oh, the kids these days are fucked up. They're watching you, mom and dad. And so instead of being the adult pointing down at them, why don't you look in the mirror? Why don't you look for the answer to what's up with your kids by saying, what's up with me? Am I setting a good example? And if you start giving yourself permission to live better and to be happy, you'll see that your kids do the same. All they want is a happy mom and dad. All they want is to be hugged by their mother and father and to be loved. That's it.
Yeah. What do we got?
Rick Mahoney says, a lot of kids need their sense of wonder back. Where do we help them find that in this age of internet narratives? Woo, that's a good one. A sense of wonder and imagination.
Yeah.
So you want to jump on this? Or you want me to get it?
No, you can go.
Fuck.
I'll go. No, that's
I'm just
fine.
kidding. Yeah,
No,
the sense
I'll
of
hit
wonder,
it then.
man,
I'm gonna hit
if
it.
you take them out of where it's all controlled, if you can take them out of the screen, the distraction, bring them into the world, they have to build their own thing. They have to learn where they fit in this and what they want to do with it. And so when it comes to a sense of wonder, in mass or mainstream media and everything that's marketed to people, they're telling you how things work. They're telling you how it is, what it's going to be. Get them out of that cycle. Put them in a scenario, put them in a position where they're creating their own content. And I don't mean literally they're tweeting and they're blogging. I'm saying what do they see in the world? Let's go chase that. What do they want to do? I spent 2 hours, 2 weekends ago, hydro dipping. And my daughter's like, oh, you spray this. And he's dude, I'm not even kidding. Here's my video, my evidence. All my shaker bottles have been hydro dipped. I've got so many things in my house that's hydro dipped.
And so that sense of
wonder you're talking about, she's not sitting there on her phone and just scrolling for hours and then going to bed. She'll say, she'll look up crafts and she'll come to me like, oh, do you want to do this craft? And we'll go and build something. And she'll do her version. And so, like I said, hydro dipping's a new one. But she was so like blown away, and her mind's like, well, what if we did this? And what if we did that? And can I go over here? You build a world to where they are a key player in building it out. It's kind of like Minecraft. They're putting the blocks in all the places. They're building their whole world there. And so I have found that getting them away from being told what the world is by mainstream media and allowing them to just explore their world and they choose the path they walk on it, that to me is a great way for them to keep their sense of imagination and their sense of control in what they're allowed to do or not allowed to do.
Yeah. No, 100%. I also think, he said, how do you get the sense of wonder back? I don't think it's gone. I just think it's masked over, right? It's being suppressed, what I talked about earlier. And there's always going to be distractions, right? Whether it's the age of information, the internet and the gaming, the live streaming, or if it's when they become teenagers and the distraction is the peer group and the, whatever crazy kids are doing these days, throwing rocks at cars, robbing liquor stores. There's always going to be a distraction. The sense of wonder is there. And I would say that probably 9 times out of 10, if I had the opportunity to give my kid that sense of wonder as opposed to the electronics, they would take the wonder, meaning they would take the other route where we're getting more involved with nature. We're camping, we're fishing, we're doing yoga, we're doing pottery, right? These are all activities my kids do. We're lifting weights. So I think it has to be cultivated within the man first, or within the woman, right? The husband and wife. And you set those examples. A lot of the kids are so controlled by electronic devices because the parents are, right? It's not just the kids. It's everybody. Everybody is distracted. Everybody's being hypnotized. It's, you see the videos of people on their phone walking into fountains in the mall. They're not even looking up. I drive my car. I see everybody on their phone, right? They're texting while they're driving, holding the phone. We have Bluetooth. What are people doing?
I would go, so you made me think of this too. How many kids are told to sit down, be quiet, sit in the corner. Kids need to be seen, not heard, all those phrases. And then they say, well, why doesn't my kid talk to me? To get that wonder back, let your kid know you want to hear what's going on in their head. Maybe it's not that the wonder's gone. Maybe they just don't tell you anymore because you've told them to be quiet. And I'm not saying you, Rick, but I'm saying parents, a lot of parents, they have told their kids enough times to just be quiet and they don't care or don't bother me, that the kid just stopped going to them. Like, well, they don't care. So why do I need to talk to them? And so the wonder didn't go away. It just got pushed down. And this is how you hear the artist. This is how you hear the kid who had this great thing and this great idea, this really proud of this thing. They go to the parent, they're told to fuck off. And they're like, okay. And all of a sudden, what could have been a great moment and a very proud achievement and possibly setting that kid up for success on a certain track You just dunk on them. And they're like, you know what? I don't want to play this anymore. Even though they're very talented, possibly prodigy. There are a lot of kids who are really naturally good at things, but their parents never foster it. They never develop it because it's not what the parent wanted, or it was interfering with the parent's comfort. And so, hey, kid, it's great that you can throw a baseball. It's great that you can do these flips. It's great that you can play this music or build this computer shit. I don't care. Go do something by yourself. And don't ask me again. I don't feel like driving you to the field. I'm not buying you that piece of equipment. And fuck off. I don't want to hear your instrument. Okay, Dad. Great. And then, oh, but why don't you talk to me? I love you so much. Where's your imagination? Yeah, I also told that thing to fuck off too.
Well, they're just not showing it to you. And I think one thing you said about being an artist, and I think it's interesting because if you look at the history of, let's say, authors, artists, poets, they don't talk about their childhood, right? They sell, even in biographies, they don't talk about the childhood. And when they do find out things, it was brutal. These are kids who suppressed everything they had, and a small percentage it comes out in the most beautiful works of art. Imagine if kids weren't suppressing it. How creative, how beautiful the world would be.
We'd be on Mars, man.
Fuck, we'd be.
Dude, I'm telling you, I played that what if game. This is because Brendan Murata, man. It's because the trauma virus and that damn book that fucked my world up. It goes all the way back to that. But it's true. We've got another chat. I'm going to throw Tim in here before I go down getting pissed off what the world could be if we were peacefully parenting our children. Big Tim, who needs to get on Oak and Rock. We've got to schedule that and get you on here, Tim. He said, do you think if everyone saw the roots of these problems, they would change? Is the truth enough? Or would people en masse still reject truth and continue to self-serve, ignoring the problems? I wish I could be a fucking optimist here, man. I really do. But we have had enough. I'll speak for myself. I've had enough conversations with dads and straight up told them, hey, I really think that if you were to shift your approach to discipline, to course correction, if you were to just stop hitting your kids and yelling, I think you would solve a lot of the issues that you're facing. And they tell me to get fucked. And then 6 months later, they come back and their kids talking about they're suicidal. They're looking to change their gender, all these things. And I say, listen to me, man. We had a conversation where I was telling you that you could open the door and open the channel, and that the way you were parenting was very oppressive and you didn't want to hear it. And now your kid's struggling. This is your fault. But they don't want to hear it, man. They don't want to look at themselves. It's got to be somebody else's fault in this.
Yeah. No, I don't think the change comes that easy. Honestly, it's like, have you ever debated with somebody about politics? They're pretty set in their ways. And I think no matter how good of the evidence we give, no matter how great the argument is, people only hear what they want to hear. And I think it's a tough path to go down, right? And I think the best thing we can do, and I'm not dismissing, like, help people, help whenever you can. But the best thing we can do is focus on our kids, raising the next generation. And that is how things are going to change, right? If you're not going to get, it's like convincing, if you had an old grandpa who smoked till he was 95, convincing him that cigarettes were bad, he'd be like, dude, I'd smoke 2 packs a day for 70 years. What are you talking about? You're not going to convince him, right? He's going to die smoking cigarettes. And not that many people live that long who smoke 2 packs a day. So throwing that out there. But you really can't change people's minds. But what you can do is influence them. It's the same thing with dieting, right? What is it like? How many percent? I think it's a small percentage of diets that actually work, like 5%, very small, or maybe 10%. It's the person that has to change. You can give them all the information. You can give them the food plan. You can actually cook their food for them, but they have to eat it. They have to stick to it. They have to want to make the change within. And I think a lot of times when that happens is when they hit rock bottom, when they hit a low point. The people who come out of that, they tend to, or I shouldn't even say 10, but something happens where they say, hey, I want to improve my life. This fucking sucks, right? I don't want to be at the bottom. But unfortunately, a lot of people don't get that chance because they fucking kill themselves, whether that's an overdose on drugs, which is rampant in society, or, intentional suicide or anything else. So again, focus on your kids, man. I think that's obviously our message we're holding strong to.
I don't disagree. I have a different angle though. When it comes to helping others, obviously you lead by examples. We have to help our kids, but I would say speaking your truth and not backing down to what it is you believe. I think that's what we're doing here.
Yeah.
What we're doing, this is not to convince you to change it. This is just offering another path for you and then providing supporting evidence to it. and then sharing all the reasons that you're wrong and we're right. That's the point of us. I'm just kidding. Maybe not. But on that last one, when you look at this, we're putting out another path, and it's not that like, oh, you have to do it our way because that's what's going to work. It's, hey, have you ever tried it this way? Have you ever thought, and here's some evidence to support that there might be a lot of truth to this, and this might be very beneficial to what it is you're trying to do with having a healthy relationship with your child. And so why not remove that? For a lot of men, I've gotten this a lot, and I'd assume you have as well. They're like, I didn't even know that was a style of parenting. I didn't even know parents weren't hitting their kids because it's so rampant. And so I've had more than one for sure messages of guys saying, hey, I didn't even know that you could parent without hitting your kid. And I was like, holy shit, dude. I didn't know this wasn't a known thing. Like, just why would you do that? Well, because it's normal around here. Holy fuck, that makes sense. If that's all you know, and that's all you've been exposed to, and that's all you've seen, your experience, your observed experience, then you don't have another tool to go off of. You don't realize you've been fucking hitting screws with a hammer the whole time. And somebody's like, hey, here's a drill. Here's a screwdriver. Try this. And they're like, oh, damn. Where was this my whole life? Exactly. We're trying to give more fathers that tool. And so while we're doing this, we can share the truth. We can present the evidence. We can give everything we're doing. But this is where I agree with you completely. We show it through our interactions with our family. We show it through what we're doing. When we share what our families are achieving or what they're going after, for the men inside FOE who get a closer look, they see like these children are objectively successful. And it's not from a monetary point, it's from just a confidence point. They're confident out there. They're going and doing things. They're just healthy kids living a normal childhood. And these parents who aren't parenting this way are trying to figure out why theirs aren't. Why are their kids struggling so bad? Why are they going through all these mental health issues? Why are they having identity issues and ours aren't? And it comes down oftentimes to they're just so overbearing that these kids are living in a world of just constant control, which is constant anxiety. I've got to do the right thing. I've got to stay out of his warpath. I've got to make sure that I don't say things the wrong way. And if I disagree, I've got to bottle that up and swallow it in the same way that if I don't want to eat this food, I've got to just shove it down my throat and swallow it because I don't want dad mad. And so what we're doing is we're presenting, why not try something different? And why not let your kids possibly just touch that wheel that you're holding and let them learn how to steer a little bit themselves? And when you want them to be functional adults, they'll have learned that because you are allowing them to steer throughout life. And you give it a little more until instead of letting go and like you don't become their child, you put them on their own ship. And now you're parallel parenting. Now they're cruising with their life. You're cruising with yours. And guess what? You got a whole fleet. And now your family's even stronger because you and your lady are chilling on your yacht and your kids are cruising around having a great time and you swing together and you drift apart. They do their thing. They come back to you. You do your thing. You come back to them. That's a beautiful life to me. But I think a lot of parents won't achieve it if they can't get to the point where they can let go of the fucking wheel.
Yeah, man, we got to get you a boat. Definitely.
Fuck boats, man. I'm getting a jet ski.
No, man, I think that was excellent. Right. I mean, I love the analogies. You can just visualize everything that you're saying. I could see the boats and my kids on one and coming.
Dude.
It's good. I like it. No, and I will say, if you really, if we break it down and you think about a lot of people, a lot of parents, they have kids for selfish reasons, right? They don't have kids because they say, I'm going to be a good parent and I'm going to raise this kid to be a healthy, functioning adult. They have kids because they say something's missing in my life and this child is going to fill that void. So I'm going to apply that pressure. I'm going to put that stress on this little child to make me feel better. And I think that is, besides being deceptive and immoral, it sets the kid up exactly for what you were talking about, right? It sets a kid up to be in an abusive relationship where they're either going to rebel or they're going to be submissive. And that's what we see in society. That's what we've seen for the longest time. And it can be changed. Like you said, there is another way. There's a different way. And it's about parenting with principles, right? We'll steal that from Patrick Smith. Having a principled approach to how you parent. And to me, it's so easy when you go down that path. Like you said, some father said, "Oh, I didn't know you didn't have to spank." Well, then you remove that, right? You don't say, "Oh, I didn't know." You say, "Hey, I'm not going to do it." Mm-hmm. And then you say, "What's the next principle?" All right, we don't hit people. What's the next one? We don't manipulate. We don't yell at people. And now you start to find yourself in a position where you're like, holy shit, I don't even know how to parent. I don't even know why I had kids. Right? Why are these little people here? I don't know what I'm doing. I was just following what my parents did, and I was treating them like they had to somehow complete me. And we see this over and over again in unhealthy relationships, right? These people grow up, they get attached, right? And then going back to Adam, he talks a lot about attachment, right? Having healthy attachment, negative attachments. That's where all this comes in, right? We have an opportunity to parent with principles and create such a healthy attachment with our children that they're going to go out and they're going to replicate that in their own life. And those are the boats coming together, right? Or it's separating and then coming back.
I like how you're going with that. So I hopped up real quick to grab this. So it's the parallel parenting solution. It's a new read I'm jumping on because I dig the concept of parallel parenting. You know, I think it was Josh Lysek who first introduced that term to me, and I like the alliteration. But I grabbed this to show I run the Family Alpha. I run Fraternity of Excellence. We run Oak and Rock Fatherhood. You run the weekly fatherhood calls inside FOE. You run Peaceful Fathers. We are, objectively speaking, very well versed in this discussion, and still I'm buying books. You're reading shit all the time, dude. You send me screenshots. I'm like, what the fuck? Where did you find this? But you're always reading on this. And I want to highlight the point. We are learning as we go too. We make this a priority. And if there were no social media, if I just did my 9 to 5 and I had come across like, oh, they got books on parenting, you were the one who introduced me to reading more about it. And so had I come across something like that, one of your tweets, something or other, and I started reading about it, even if this wasn't my job, I would be reading about it because being a father is the greatest job I will ever have. I read about fitness. I read about money. I read about relationships and interactions, how people think. Why would I not read about parenting? It is the greatest role. It is something I wanted to be and do and be good at when I was a child. Why would I not put the time in to spending the $6, whatever the hell it is, to get a book so I can sit and read and maybe take a few notes away or different insights on how I could better connect with my children? Why would I not invest in that? It's literally the longest investment I'll have. I'm with them for the rest of my life. I can buy a shit coin and flip a shit coin and sell a shit coin. I can buy a stock, raise it, pump it, dump it, whatever. I can do that with money all day. I can go carnivore. I can go keto. I can go vegan. I can switch it up and change it. These things last months, maybe. Good training programs will last years. This lasts life. My entire life, I'm a dad. That is the longest thing I will be. I'm going to be a dad much longer than I've not been a dad. Think about that. Why would we not invest in it? I've been a dad for 12 years now. Dude, I cannot tell you how much I've grown in those 12 years. Someday my kid's going to be 40.
Yeah.
Think about that. I'll have been a dad for 40 fucking years.
It's crazy.
Dude, I want to be good at this. I want to make this work. So I'm investing in it. And this, right now I'm operating off the camera on the desktop. But if I could flip that whole shit over, there's a whole bookshelf dedicated just to relationships, parenting, and family. A whole 1, 2, 3, 6 shelves, 36 inches wide, parenting books nonstop. It's a fucking big part of what it is I want to do and know. I don't see why any father wouldn't take that level of investment in the biggest investment they'll have in their life.
Yeah. And I think next episode we should dive into OCD a little bit, talk about that.
They're structured from height and alphabetical by shelf.
Nah, man, that's awesome. I love to hear it. And I think that's such a great point to emphasize, right? You're doing it not because there's a fear that you're going to be a bad parent or a worry that you're going to fuck your kids up. You're doing it because you love it. You have a passion for it. It drives you to become better, right? It's not fear-based. It's growth-based. You're saying, hey, this is the most important job I'm going to have. I'm going to dive into it. I'm going to go all in. What other choice do I have? And it's not going to break me, right? You don't sit down at night and put your head down and say, oh my God, I'm such a bad dad. I wasn't perfect today. That's not what it's about. It's about getting better. Every book you read, every conversation you have. You know, we do these Twitter spaces on Dad's Day every Monday through Friday, every day. And I walk away from those and I'm like, oh my God, man, I learned so much. You know, it's mostly from Tim speaking, but there's a lot of stuff. There are so many solid points and just nuggets being dropped all day, right? I mean, for the whole hour that we're on these every day. And I walk away from that and I'm like, man, what a great opportunity for me, not only for the people who come on and listen, but just for me to be a part of that and understand that I don't have to be the perfect dad, right? I will make mistakes, but that's not the purpose of this. The purpose is to get better. It's to improve my life. And then I can look in the mirror and say, hey man, I'm doing the best that I can. And I can honestly have an objective thought process about that and say, I am doing the best I can. There's no more I can do, right? As far as getting better in this moment. And then I can relax and I can enjoy what I've
Dude,
created.
I have to jump on that. Dude, that right there is what men are looking for. A sense of peace and satisfaction in their life. Dudes are so fucking anxious. Like they are so twisted up that they feel like I'm doing nothing. I'm failing. I can't achieve this. And I'm like, do you stop working out if you get injured? Or do you just work around the injury and then just heal and then figure it out? Like I can tell you firsthand, you keep training. Like I'm fucked up right now and I'm still training. You know, if you make a mistake as a parent, that shouldn't stop you from wanting to be a parent or wanting to better parent. And so whether you had a bad childhood, you're afraid of replicating it, or whether you fucked up a little bit, and you're just afraid, well, what's the point of starting now? That is the point of starting now. You have your whole life to do this. So the fear of failure can't stop you from trying or getting it started, because that's the only way you can succeed. Reading this is not going to make me a great dad. It's going to give me tools to be a better dad. And when I slip up, I'm not going to be like, oh, well, I tried, time to throw it away. No, your point there on investing in this and saying, I did my best. Like I'm reading books about it. I'm trying to connect. I'm listening to my kids. I'm doing my best. And so when I go to bed, I'm not like, oh, I'm fucking these kids up. I'm like, I'm doing my best. Like when they look bad, they will know my dad tried. And a lot of men can't even say they tried. So when they lay down at night, they didn't do their best at their job. They didn't do their best with their wife. They didn't do their best in the gym. They didn't do their best with the kids. And no fucking wonder they're laying down anxious as fuck and miserable. It's not the kids that are fucked up. It's the adults, because they're not doing their best.
Man. Yes. That's true, man. And I think that's a solid point to fucking bring it to a close, man.
Yes, sir.
I don't have much to say.
No, it's been good, man.
Yeah,
One thing I think we will
absolutely.
do, I think we should do maybe top 10 reads, do a quick breakdown on some books. Because now that I got it next to me, we've got some good ones. And people
Yeah.
do ask, what's the best thing for a dad? So we could do, we'll do a few. So if you have a question, or if you have any books or recommendations or resources you think we should include, please throw them into the chat or shoot us a DM. And then we'll make sure that we include that in that episode. We're going to be talking about resources, things that we see that we use, things that we turn to, authors, blogs, things like that. So we'll get a good list for you guys. We'll drop into the description of the video so you can just click on it and save it. But the important part is you're investing time into it. You're making it a priority. And honestly, if it comes down to, reading a book or watching another episode of whatever show, like let the show go. It's going to be around. You can always go back to it. But those kids, that day's gone. And the next day is going to be gone. And you don't get any of those back. You can't go back and watch last season of their life. You can't go back and parent last year. You can only parent today and tomorrow. So let's focus on that. Make that a priority. That's Anthony. I'm Zach. You're the subscriber. And if you're not, make sure you do that. Have a great night.